Let the Karens rejoice, because the CDC, in a surprise kind of 180 move, is now saying that fully vaccinated people don't need to wear masks indoors. Oh wait, I said fully vaccinated, ergo Karens. Womp, 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 might be a little upset about that. But the CDC director, Rochelle Walensky, said that anyone who's fully vaccinated can participate in indoor and outdoor activities, large or small, without wearing a mask or physical distancing. If you're fully vaccinated, you can start doing the things that you had stopped because of the pandemic. The new guidance still calls for wearing masks in crowded indoor settings, such as buses, planes, hospitals, prisons, and homeless shelters. We have a lot of thoughts about that, but could ease restrictions for reopening workplaces and schools. Now, that sounds a little contradictory to me, and I was just reading it out loud, like, yay, no masks indoors if you're vaccinated, but, and so it seems like there's a lot of buts. And of course, there's a lot of questions about implementation, because different cities and states and counties and private businesses have their own protocols. So many public health experts and local officials say they're puzzled about how to implement the new advice, since there was no national system for differentiating people who are fully vaccinated. Now 36% of Americans, not that high, from the 64% of Americans who are not. And I just wanted to play this clip before we talk about it. Jake Tapper was actually asking Dr. Anthony Fauci specifically about this, like, how do you check and what does this mean for people going forward? Take a look.
More than 40% of adults, we should note, still are not fully vaccinated. Some are partially, but not fully. There's no real way right now to track who's vaccinated, who isn't vaccinated. There's a lot of resistance to any sort of vaccine passport, but how are restaurants, airlines, others supposed to know if the people coming to their establishments or their vehicles without masks really have the right to not well, we all have a right to do whatever we want, but really have the CDC guidance supporting their not wearing masks?
Well, Jake, they will not be able to know. I mean, you're going to be depending on people being honest enough to say whether they were vaccinated or not, and responsible enough to be wearing a mask, not only for their own protection, but also for the protection of others. And by the way, even though we will not be, and what we've said this many times, Jake, we will not be mandating vaccine passports from the federal level, there are going to be institutions clearly that are going to be saying, and that could be airlines. We know certain colleges are also saying, if you're not vaccinated, you're not going to come on campus to classes in real time. And there are going to be some institutions that might be saying the same thing. So although the federal government wouldn't be mandating to have a passport proving you're vaccinated, there may be organizations that will do that.
Right, so you heard there, we are relying on one another to be honest about having been vaccinated. Cenk,
what could
Brian?
go wrong? What could go wrong? Here's the thing. I just want to talk about the idea of vaccine passports. I personally, I think that it's, I would support it. I think that there's a lot of opposition to it, and in the name of personal freedom. But I don't think that this really is an issue of personal freedom. Like, if you decide to make yourself a vector for a virus with increasing variants, by the way, it's not just you at risk, it's everyone. That's the same reason that we have speed limits on roads to protect everyone on the roads. The same reason that you can't walk onto a plane with a gun to protect everybody on board of that plane. Living in the US isn't carte blanche to just do whatever you want, whenever you want. And I think that's like this common misconception that, like, because we're Americans, we can just like shoot guns in the air, walk around naked, and like and cough on babies and infect people. It's just it doesn't work like that. And one last thing here is just, no one is forcing you to get a vaccine passport, but at the same time, no one's forcing you to be able to go to sporting events and concerts and cruises either. Like, this is the free market, which the right had applauded up until the very second that it doesn't unilaterally benefit them anymore.
Right.
Yeah, so first on the CDC guidelines, I agree. Why? Because I read the same studies they did. Don't get me wrong, I'm not staying up at night reading the entire study, but I read summaries of the studies. And I wouldn't want you to think that I actually do a lot of work. And
we know you do.
And that's why I've been saying on the show for some time, it's okay, guys, the vaccines work. And if they work, then you should be able to go outdoors and yes, even indoors. And so like Bill Maher just tested positive even though he got vaccinated. But that's what seemed to be the opposite of what I'm saying. No, it's not. I explained this in the bonus episode for members at greater length yesterday. Even if you get sick when you've been vaccinated from coronavirus, it's a lower viral load. At this point, Maher is asymptomatic, doesn't have any symptoms. I don't know if that'll change, but some percentage of people, and it's a very low, it's about 1 in 1,000 so far that have gotten vaccinated get sick anyway. But of those, almost none of them get hospitalized or die because that, and Anna and Craig yesterday were making fun of me for the small viral load framing, but that's not my words. Those are actually words that scientists use. It makes a giant difference. It makes it non-lethal. It makes it more like a common cold. So now in terms of the passports, look, if they had them, I'd get one. I wouldn't hesitate at all. I already have the vaccine, so Bill Gates is already following me around town, but my phone is coming in much clearer. I'm all good, right? And so I'd show the passport, I wouldn't care. But in America, let's keep it real, it's never gonna work. And so, do I trust the right wingers that if they say they got vaccinated? Of course not. They're right wingers. They look up to Donald Trump. What did he tell like over 10,000 lies when he was in office? So at the same time, what am I gonna do? When the vaccine works, okay. If you want to endanger yourself, that's up to you. I get that you're putting us in a little bit more danger. Obviously, I don't like that, but guys, I don't think realistically I mean, my God, if Democrats or anybody said, you have to get, a passport to show that you've been vaccinated, otherwise you can't go to places, they might start a literal civil war.
Yeah, but it also feels, I mean, I'm just gonna say that it does feel like a massive waste of a vaccine. We have this unprecedented rollout, and as of end of March, the CDC was insanely cautious, worried that there would be yet another spike, and yet that has not borne out. And of course, they're changing their tune every single week, and that's fine. They should do that. They should base their conclusions on science. The problem I have is that it's all just advice, and there is no one enforcing anything, and it kind of feels like there's no one in charge and there's no government. And it also feels like, yet again, this is left to private businesses, just like literally everything in this country. Well, we'll just let the private, the free market sort it out. Well, the free market ultimately still wants you to go out and no matter what the risks are, spend a lot of money, maybe you get COVID, maybe you die. Let's be real, we saw what the free market did to people last year. The entire Trump administration behaved only, beholden to the free market. But I wanted to bring in who this falls on, because there's someone else who had thoughts on the CDC's 180 here in terms of wearing masks and not being able to wear masks indoors if you're vaccinated, which is the head of the United Food and Commercial Workers Union, Mark Perrone. He tweeted, millions of Americans are doing the right thing, getting vaccinated, but essential workers are still forced to play mask police and for shoppers who are unvaccinated and refuse to follow local COVID safety measures. And look, guys, how many videos did we see of Karens flipping out, people flipping out for having to wear masks indoors? And you had who? Walmart workers, essential workers on the front lines, stepping to people, literally spitting in their faces. And so as much as I agree, Cenk, we're not gonna have vaccine passports, it's gonna be difficult to enforce that, especially on a federal or a statewide level. At the end of the day, it's falling to these folks who are making, if they're lucky, $15 an hour. We're gonna talk a little bit about that later, but I think that's a really important thing to remember, that it's ultimately on people who have no business being the police. Not that the police are knocking it out of the park lately at all, but on them to make sure that people are or are not vaccinated. What do you?
And it's just another instance of right-wing privilege, right? Because if the left wing said we're not gonna do something, people in charge would be like, don't care, we'll arrest you en masse. We might even pass laws saying it's legal to drive over you in a car if you're in the middle of a protest, or we'll just shoot you. But if the right wing say en masse, we're not gonna do it, everybody goes, okay, immediate surrender. And that's the reality of what happened.
I wanted to just mention that, so actually supermarkets are already dropping the sort of mask requirement, and Trader Joe's home of all the delicious snacks, is one of the first supermarkets to say, yeah, you don't need to wear a mask if you're fully vaccinated. They've not stated that they're going to be checking any kind of vaccination cards at the door. But let me just ask the audience and you guys, do you think that this lady who went viral for her little outbreak is going to be honest when asked about whether or not she got the vaccine? Remember her?
Karen is showing out in Trader Joe's. She does not have on a mask, and somebody said, "You leave," and she is having it out. Trader Joe's. This is day one. This is opening day of Trader Joe's in North Hollywood. This is Karen.
Yep, breathing problem as she gasps and yells at you. I don't know, guys, I don't trust this woman. I don't think she's gonna get the vaccine, and I sure as hell don't trust her if she comes into a Trader Joe's and is like, oh, I totally got it. Like, really?
There's gonna come a point where the people who are most at risk for this stuff are just the last ones left not vaccinated, because the virus is gonna continue to evolve. It's gonna continue to exist. This thing isn't going away anytime soon because we have so much of the country seemingly that doesn't want it to go away. And so, at the end of the day, the people who are just putting themselves at the most risk are not the ones who are vaccinated. It's the ones who aren't vaccinated. It's the ones who have the so-called breathing problems. Yeah.
So I'm surprised all that happened at a Trader Joe's, because there's no place on earth I get recognized more than a Trader Joe's. I get recognized at Trader Joe's more than I get recognized at TYT's Rebel headquarters. But for all those anti-maskers and anti-vaxxers and all that, guys, look, you know what? Own the libs. Live rent-free in our heads by booking vacations in India. You got it, guys, you got it. Go for it, see how it turns out for you. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR, so those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.